Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your comments on the future regulatory landscape and apparatus, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. First, I'm going to ask a couple of questions about news of the day, and then we'll go into the regulatory framework. So, Mr. Secretary, first, just about the state of the economy. We've had about a week to digest the announcements from the president, and we've seen some of the world's response. What's your message to the bank leaders here in the room about the state of the economy and the market reaction?
Well, Rob, thank you for having me. And, I would say people in this room know more about the state of the economy than I do. That I have always been, for my investment business, we used to do what was called the micro driving the macro. So we did not have any better model for predicting non-farm payrolls, core PCE, that, because I think a lot of that is this. But what we did was we went out, we talked to banks, we talked to businesses, we constructed a mosaic from the bottom up. And I can tell you that there is a little uncertainty, but that in general, the companies that I've spoken to, the people who have come, the CEOs who have come into Treasury, tell me that the economy is very solid. We got some very good jobs numbers last Friday. So, I think that we are in pretty good shape.
Thank you. Tariffs. It's been about a week since the president announced his plan. The reciprocal tariffs went into effect last night. And I know, and I've been reading and listening to you and other administration officials who've said that depending on how some other nations react, those could come down or those could go away. So if you could share a little bit on, have you been encouraged with the response from other nations to the administration? Has it been what you've been hoping for? What's that outreach from across the globe been like, and how are those negotiations going?
Well, Rob, I will tell you that Wednesday, after the president gave his address in the Rose Garden, as I was doing media, I was out telling other countries, don't retaliate. And I think what a lot of people are missing here is that the levels that were put out last Wednesday are a ceiling. So if you don't retaliate, that is the ceiling. So we've been overwhelmed with the response to come to D.C. and negotiate. So President Trump on Monday had a very good call with the Japanese Prime Minister. He had a very good call with the President of Korea yesterday. We're seeing a delegation from Vietnam. So I think we have about 70 negotiations lined up. I'm not planning on going anywhere for Easter. And I believe that I had obviously been providing advice on the tariffs, working more on the tax bill that we'll talk about. And now I'm going to take a lead negotiating role in a lot of the tariffs, starting with the Japanese delegation. But in terms of escalation, unfortunately, the biggest offender in the global trading system is China. And they're the only country who's escalated. And I can tell the rest of the world that I'm not sure whether it was the Prime Minister or the Economic Minister in Spain made some comments this morning, oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is the Chinese business model. It never stops. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
Yeah. One other question on news of the day, and then we'll go into regulation and some other Treasury agenda items. So you're the point person for the President of the United States on the spending bill, the budget, and the tax bill. How are those negotiations going right now? Is this something that will get done for the August recess? How's that going to play out?
So it's going better than expected, but I may live to regret that remark. I understand you're seeing Congressman Arrington today. I would urge him for tell him that you want certainty on taxes for yourselves, for your customers. And look, the reason I came out from behind my desk, I'm not sure what a budget hawk looks like, but I see one when I look in the mirror. And one of the reasons I came out from behind my desk was this incredible fiscal, the prolificacy and irresponsibility that the last administration did, 6.7% deficit to GDP. We have never seen when we weren't at war or in a recession, and they just spent. So what we're trying to do is bring down government spending, they right-size the federal workforce, and then on the other side, as I just described, through safe, smart, and sound financial deregulation, make it possible for you all to re-leverage the private sector. So we want to deleverage the government sector, re-leverage the private sector, but we can't do it all at once. And I tell these congressmen, I tell the senators, look, our fiscal situation is a 350-pound, 2-pack-a-day smoker on the ICU table, and he or she is not going to get off that table and run the Ironman. And we're going to get on a treadmill. We are going to bring the deficit to GDP hopefully down by 1% every year and get it back toward the long-term target of 3.5%. So and look, I understand why some of these congressmen, some of these senators, they are rabid and like, we got to do it now, but we can't do it all at once, or that will cause a recession. What will keep us from having a recession is making sure that the tax bill doesn't expire, adding back 100% depreciation, and then adding some of President Trump's agenda, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, and making, when I bought my first car, I'm 62, when I bought my first car, auto loans were tax deductible. So we're going to do that again for American-made cars.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now let's go segue to regulation. I was taking notes and reading the full speech behind the stage, and a couple of highlights stood out, and then I have a question for you. The important role community banks, the important and unique role community banks play in our economy, tailoring regulation, change in a culture of supervision. You mentioned deposit insurance modernization in the written remarks, resolutions to AML framework, bank resolution, regulatory capital, your concerns with Basel, your concerns around, non-bank financial intermediation and activity. I mean, this, Mr. Secretary, is an ambitious, warranted, and most welcome set of reforms. So thank you. My question for you is, how are you going to go about doing all of that? That's a big, big list, and you have an incredibly important role. So what's the strategy to try to get all this done?
Yes, so Rob, I was fortunate that President Trump entrusted me on behalf of him with choosing the personnel for these spots. Jonathan McKernan's here today. He's going to lead the CFPB. Jonathan Gould, I think, is about to be confirmed as head of the OCC. Travis Hill is acting at FDIC. Brian Quinez at CFTC. Mickey Bowman moving up. Everyone in this room's friend, Michael Barr, moving down. Mickey Bowman moving up. So I do believe policy is personnel, personnel's policy. So I'm just the conductor, and I got a great orchestra, and we're going to make great music.
Well, we're going to be partners with you on making that music. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We have about 2 minutes left with the Treasury Secretary, so two other really quick ones. Fighting fraud, which is a huge priority for us at the ABA. We welcomed your announcement quite recently of moving away from paper into digital forms of payments out of the Treasury. We think that is fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about the transition and how we make that work together.
Right. So, unfortunately, mail fraud has actually picked up. And I don't have to tell people and hear about check washing and all of that. So for we are trying, for government checks, we are trying to make that more paperless because it's more secure and more efficient. So we'll see what happens. I think, unfortunately, just like auto accidents, we can put in seat belts, we can put in all the warning systems. There's still going to be auto accidents, but I think we can start pushing that down.
We agree, and we have all these public awareness campaigns that we're going to continue to bring to bear. Banks never ask that. Practice safe checks, safe banking for seniors, all of these, which will complement the effort that Treasury has put forward, which we think is great. And in our last minute, Mr. Secretary, I know for you, we've talked about this before, a priority for you is financial literacy. So I want to give you the last minute to talk about why that's a priority for you and where you aim to steer the Treasury Department going forward.
Sure, and Rob, look, I may seem very exciting, but I actually began my career as a banks analyst and insurance analyst, and if you think being a banks analyst ruins your eyesight, being an insurance analyst is worse. So I used to read Camel reports, I've read Kansas statutory life insurance reports, and look, I've seen the way to grow the American dream. Most people that just want to know the way forward. And what we saw with Occupy Wall Street was a disenchantment with the system. And I believe that we have to bring more people into the system. I lived in Miami for a while, and as part of our church, we went and helped the people in the community, underserved communities, prepare their tax returns. When you show somebody they're getting a refund that they didn't know they were going to get, it's very, very exciting. So we've got a big cohort in the U.S. who just, they want to know, like, how does money work? How does household balance sheet work? And I think the community banks, along with Treasury, can play a big role in that. And it stops financial fraud. I will confess to everyone in this room, my deep, dark secret is I am from South Carolina, and like many people there, I have a Dr. Pepper for breakfast, which puts me at the Circle K on Meeting Street at about between 7 and 6, because I don't do it at home. It's kind of like getting sent outside. I don't want my kids to see it, so but it puts me at the Circle K on Meeting Street in Charleston, South Carolina, 7:30 in the morning. There, bunch of young men in there, primarily African American. The construction workers going to work, and they'll come up, "Mister, when I win the lottery, will you manage my money for me?" So the best thing you can do is not play the lottery. But they don't understand how to put the money away, how to create wealth, how to put it in the stock market. And they want to learn, and I think that that's going to be a big part of the American dream. I think that during the recovery or the rescue phase of COVID, it was very important to get those checks out. We probably sent a little too much out during the recovery phase. But like those households have gone through a lot of that, and I think with proper financial literacy, they could have improved their savings. That College of Charleston, my hometown, has a great program for students who, first ones in their family to go to college or are on full financial aid. These kids show up, American Express is in the freshman quad, signing them up to a credit card, and within 3 semesters, they're over their head in debt and they got to drop out. So like the American dream, that I think financial literacy or financial security is the American dream. And everyone in this room can do to help. Treasury, if you have ideas, bring them to Treasury. This is Financial Literacy Month, and we're going to be working with a lot of organizations. We're going to do it every April we're going to have 3 more of these, so I'd love to be a part of that with everybody in this room.
Well, that's great. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your leadership on behalf of the nation. Please join me in thanking Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
Subscribe to One India channel and never miss an update.